So you just had, is it, I saw on your Instagram that today your book, is it today that your book is able to be purchased?
My book is able to be purchased as of yesterday, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
exciting. How long did it take for you to complete that?
I started to, I sat down to write that book three different times.
Mm.
So if I start from back then, it's taken me about 2 years.
Mm.
By the time I actually sat down to write it, it was pretty well, like the words flowed. You know what I mean? By the time the third time came around, they just kind of poured out of me.
Oh my
So
God.
that was nice. And that happened, I would say it must have been the summer. So it's been close to a year.
Yeah, wow. That's pretty quick actually for a book.
It's my fourth one. You kind of get used to the rhythm, you know? And I find that if I get the editing done while I'm writing,
Mm.
it's much faster for me
Mm. Yeah.
versus all at the end.
Did you work with an editor that you've worked with before? Or was it all by yourself?
It was all by myself, you
Gosh.
know? Yeah.
You edited it
Yeah. Which is not
yourself.
advised. I did. It's not
No.
advised. So
Crazy
anybody listening to
person.
this, don't do that. But I spent so much money on books are expensive to produce. People
Yeah.
don't really realize that, especially if you're making a movement book where you have professional pictures and you need illustrations and then you need the interior layout. And my book's very experiential. Like I want people to like actually take the time to reflect and write and there's worksheets. So all of that costs money to produce.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
when you're
crazy.
looking at it, you're like, oh, okay, I just spent a lot of money on that. I don't have much left over. Chances of me breaking even are kind of slim. So let's just.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's a huge process.
Thank you.
So you
Yeah.
have four other books that you've written. This one is called
Three.
Spinal Intelligence. Oh, three other books before this. Were your other
Yes.
ones as movementy as this one? As
I do.
experiential?
I do seem to kind of fall into that. Two of them were specifically for movement professionals. And so they're actually published by a publishing company. And one of them is very academic. I was in a mood. It was COVID. And I was like, I'm just going to tell it like it is. And it was one of the people that proofread it or that did the first run through of the read. She said, Jen, this is excellent information, but it's like a dissertation. You have to get a little more.
More fun,
Yeah,
digestible.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Which
went through a couple
one? What
rewrites.
was that one called?
That was the science of movement, exercise, and mental health.
Oh, wow. That's a good topic for COVID. Yeah.
It was a good topic for COVID. Yeah. And it's something I'm just really fascinated by. So
Yeah.
I really wanted to get the information out there. There wasn't really much out there on it at the time.
Mm.
So I went down a rabbit hole. And then my very first book was definitely more experiential, but it was less for, it was for movement professionals. So it was more just kind of the underlying explanation of how do we move? Like, how does that happen? You
Mm.
know?
Yeah, cool. Well,
Um,
the intersection of mental health and movement is something I'm really curious about. Not really in what I do professionally, well, kind of what I do professionally, but it's not a thing I tackle directly. It's more something that inevitably comes up if you engage with movement for everyone. And yeah, it'd be good to have info about how to move through that more intentionally, perhaps. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit more in this conversation. But I want
yeah,
to just quickly tell you a little bit about um, like how I found you and why I wanted to
I'd
speak
love to
with
hear.
you. And I actually, like, I don't remember how I first found you, but I somehow ended up subscribed to your Substack, which I really like. And I love that Substack is now a platform that a lot more people are using because it's so versatile, so good for video, audio, text. I don't know, does anybody even read blog posts anymore?
I write them, so I hope people read them. I don't know.
Too. But I was actually listening to a little, it was like a marketing podcast, which I need to get my head around now how marketing is completely changing with everything that's changing technologically. But this man was saying that people barely even click on search results anymore because of the AI overview. So people
Mhm.
rarely, even if you're the top ranking thing that comes up, if someone's searching for, oh, Jenn Pilotti, my spine hurts, or something, they won't even necessarily click on the link. They'll just read the AI overview and that's it. So how do we now try to get people to visit our website and work with us or buy our book if people don't even click links anymore? It's like, oh, this. So yeah, blog posts. I don't even know if anyone is into that anymore, but that's why I started doing this podcast because I feel like people like to listen to audio while they're out and about and doing things, and that just totally gave away I'm Canadian. um, but anyway, so I ended up following you on Substack somehow, and then I found you on Instagram, and I don't remember how, but I when I started doing this podcast, I knew I wanted to speak with you because of the way that you approach your movement coaching and you're working with bodies. It just feels really wholesome to me. And a few years ago, just a little bit of background, I went through, this was during COVID while you were working on your book, probably. I was going through my own kind of mental health and body crisis that I didn't realize at the time, but it was all mixed together. My symptoms were really manifestations of things internally I wasn't able to process and wasn't aware of. And then something inside me really flipped, and I was unable to look at social media content from anyone who is giving advice about what to do with your body. Like do this exercise, move this way, this is how your knee is supposed to work. I just couldn't look at anything, even if it was people that I kind of knew were correct in what they were saying. Just anything. I couldn't look at it. It was like something really got triggered in me. And I think this is a natural response to just needing to relearn how to trust my body without any kind of outside sources of ideas imposed upon me. And it was so visceral, this response. But for some reason, you stayed in my feed because when I looked at your work, I wasn't triggered. So I don't know what that means. But I think that's a really good sign that there's something about what you're communicating that's really helpful for people like myself who are going through some hard times with their body. And to be honest, I don't know much about your history and what you do exactly and who you work with. So I was really curious to get to know a bit more about who you are and see what it is about your work that made me feel so safe and not like I needed to push away your concepts and ideas and actually embrace them a little bit more. So, yeah, Jenn, shall we get into what is your actual professional background? How would you describe what you do to people? Do to people? How would you? That didn't come out right. How would you describe what you do to the people who are listening to this podcast?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm flattered that I stayed in your feed. That is, I really appreciate that because one of the things I think is really important, and I think it's an aspect of coaching that is sometimes lost, is it's not about me, it's about the person and their experience, right? So that's always the framework from which I move, from which I function is how can I help this person experience themselves, experience movement in a way that feels right for them. It's not what's right for me, it's what's right for them. So my professional background is I've been doing this for 24 years. And when I started off way back when, right out of college, I noticed right away that the traditional fitness that I had been taught wasn't necessarily what resonated with people. This idea of fitness is something that you need to do, that needs to be a workout. It needs to hurt. It needs to be, people wanted to do something that was fun. They wanted to feel good in their bodies. And they would do some work along the way. That was totally fine, especially if it involved some aspect that resonated with them, you know? So long story short, I kept exploring, I kept studying, and then I got really into kind of the whole thing. Like I studied a whole bunch of stuff. If you name acronyms, there's a good chance I took a workshop on it. And if I didn't take a workshop on it, I, in the very least, read up on what it was. And I didn't just read up on what it was. I wanted to know where it came from. I always wanted to know, where did this come from? What are the foundational principles that this is based upon? And when I went back to graduate school, when I was 30, I was intrigued by the whole neuromuscular system. That was what I kind of caught my attention. And then I got really into motor learning. I wanted to know how motor learning worked. And I was like, well, gosh, if I approach movement from this idea of I'm just helping someone learn something, then maybe that's good because learning is good and learning is something that piques curiosity and makes people interested. And I kept learning, kept absorbing all of this knowledge. And eventually it got to the point where I am today. And I work with all ages. Most of my clients are intelligent, anxious, high performing individuals. And by high performing, I don't just mean like, CEOs. There are moms out there that are killing it at home. And we don't give them enough, you know, they're basically running the situation at home and they're not at their wits end, but they've got a lot going on. And so the fact that they carve out a little bit of time for me, it's amazing.
Mm.
So one of the things I've been told that I do really well is if someone comes in and I can tell they just need to like work really hard and do the thing and get out of their head, I can do that. But if someone comes in and they're having a moment and they need some recalibration and to feel more at home in their body, more connected to themselves, more grounded, whatever that is, I can also do that.
Mm. Yeah.
So there's this sort of like I can do both ends. That's all.
Mm. And would you say you're working in is it a personal training kind of context, like one to one with people primarily?
Definitely one to one. I do teach workshops occasionally. I should say it's a couple of times a year I teach workshops, which is really fun. And then I try to do group stuff online occasionally, but as you noted, it's hard to get people to find you and, be like, "Oh yeah, I want to do that." My regular clients, I have no problem getting
Mm.
those. It's just not a thing.
Yeah. So you mentioned that the traditional fitness way that you were taught didn't resonate with you. Was that through personal training courses or was it through university or what was it that you were learning that just didn't resonate?
It was both. the I went through my certification was one that required a college degree, and I went down to San Diego for it. And I remember I was supposed to teach somebody a lunch. That was the practical coaching point. It was, I had to take a test about all kinds of physiological things, but then I needed to teach this person how to lunch. And
Wait,
I had
sorry, say
never
that
been
again. Teach them how to lunch?
How to lunge,
Oh,
sorry. How to do a
lunge.
lunge. How to do like a basic lunge. Yeah. I liked lunch though. That would have been more interesting.
Oh, go on, sorry.
That could have been a whole dialogue. That could have been like, oh, oh. But I had to teach this person how to do a lunge. Nobody had ever taken the time to explain to me what teaching was. How do you get somebody to do something when you've never been taught it yourself? I knew how to lunge because I'd been working out for years, but I'd never taught one. It didn't go very well. And I remember walking out of there going, I'm going to be doing this for a living. And then as my first couple years progressed, and I didn't want it to just be about the movements, about these very linear, not, t- I've been strength training for years. I love picking up a barbell. I love doing pull ups. I love all of it,
Mhm.
but it's not that interesting to teach,
Mm.
you know? Um, it can be. You can find layers, and that's I think what kind of started it was I'm like, well, how can I find the layers to make this more interesting for me? you know? And in doing so, that made it more interesting for the client because I'd be like, oh, let's try this. And they'd be like, oh, that makes it easier. I'm like, excellent.
Mm.
Let's do that then.
Hmm. Yeah, I resonate with that quite a bit. I was a personal trainer and I don't really work in that capacity anymore, but I was trained through in Canada we have this program or this company called CanFit Pro. Do you have that in the US?
Yes. We don't have that, but I have a client in Canada who is also a personal trainer. And so, yes, I know all about CanFit Pro.
Okay. Well, you probably know then that it is a very easy certification to get. And I won't say anything about it, just in case someone's listening that's offended. But I have things to say about it because I left that certification feeling like I have no idea what I'm doing. I learned that the one of our projects, actually, similar to your teach someone how to lunge, was was that we had to create, this was the essay portion, we had to create a workout program that targeted the whole body for strength. So I'm really good at at underachieving through things and doing the minimal possible work. So it was sufficient to write, what are you going to do for the quads, to target the quads? Well, I'm going to do the seated leg extension. How are you going to help them with their hamstrings? Well, I'm going to do the lying hamstring curl. How are you going to target their abs? I'm going to do the ab curl machine. How are you going to target their biceps? I'm going to do the seated bicep curl machine. So everything was, there was a machine to target the muscle. And at the time, actually, I was trying to develop the reason I was going into personal training was I was trying to develop a strength training and injury prevention program for dancers because that was my background.
Oh.
And
Mhm.
I left that Canfit Pro course thinking, well, I know how to work muscles, but strength isn't the whole picture here with helping dancers
Right.
to perform and prevent injuries and feel better in their bodies. So what do I need to learn now? And I was just really disappointed in the traditional education that I got. So I totally resonate with that. And then the teaching, you know the concepts, but then teaching someone how to actually move is quite a different thing. So what did you learn from there about helping people to learn how to move?
I did that. I learned on the job.
Mm,
And at the time, so I did my certification. I was still an undergrad. So I had a year left of undergrad. They allowed me to take it a year, like a little bit early, the certification did. And I was doing an internship. And at the internship, I was initially just writing like fitness newsletters and stuff. But then my boss was like, "Oh, our fitness instructor is going out of town or maternity leave or something. Can you take over teaching all the fitness classes?" And I had never taught fitness before, but I was like, sure. So that was where I started learning like how to at least get people to do what I wanted them to do. Because your words, I could say something to you and you could interpret it very differently than what I mean.
yes. Yes.
And people who have followed, if anybody's listening to this who's followed my work for a long time, has heard this story. But the thing that really changed in my ability to teach was when I worked with a client with Alzheimer's.
Mm,
And the thing with communicating with someone who has cognitive decline, particularly when they don't have good executive functioning and their focus is starting to diminish, you have to be so clear
mm.
and you cannot use extra words. And you've got to give them something that anchors their attention. So, working with him, and I worked with him when I first started working with him, it was about 2 years before he died.
Mm.
I worked with him all the way up until the month before he died.
Oh my God.
So I watched him get progressively worse. I worked with him 2 days a week and he never missed a session. And it was amazing because even up until the end, I could still get him to exercise.
Wow. And what were his goals and expectations as someone who probably knew he was declining? And what did you do with him?
I did very simple things. We would do things across the room. He liked doing movements across the room. So I'd have him like toss a ball up while he walked. I would have him do just a basic like cable exercises, um, basic dumbbell exercises. I would have him do walking sideways.
Mm.
Sometimes he'd want to sing. So I would take him out. I worked at a beautiful space. We overlooked the ocean. So I would take him outside on the deck and he would sing and I would give him just simple leg movements to do,
Oh,
you know?
that's amazing.
Um, yeah, it was a pretty special, I don't know, it was a very formative time in my career.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so you
I
must have
learned a
had
lot.
to learn. Yeah, you would have learned a lot about. That's a very extreme case, but that will, yeah, definitely help you to accommodate people at all phases, just to recognize how do I communicate differently with different people with different levels of ability to comprehend words and abilities. And when you said about different people interpret things differently, that reminds me also of a client that I had who she was very in her posture, just very pelvis posteriorly tilted, like just super tucked under. And I was trying to help her understand how to do an anterior tilt for lunges, squats, anything really. Just wanted to help her get out of that tucked under position. So I'd say, tilt your pelvis forward. And then she'd go farther into a posterior tilt. And I'm like, you're doing it
Yes.
backwards,
Yes.
forwards, not backwards. And she's like, I'm doing it right. And I'm like, no, tilt it forwards, not backwards. And then this went on for months, and I was chatting with a mentor about it. I'm like, I just can't seem to communicate to this woman. Like, is it me or is it her? And he asked me, well, what's her reference point for her pelvis? And I'm like, oh. He said, she probably has the opposite reference point. She's probably referencing the back of her pelvis, and you're referencing the front of her pelvis. Which, of course, if you're thinking about the back of your pelvis and you're thinking of putting the back of your pelvis forwards, then you're going to try to tuck it under so the back of your pelvis is in front of your nose. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what she's doing. And since then, it was smooth communication, but I just never had thought that I should ask what she is trying to move. That was a learning. Oh, dear. So anyway, Jen, do you help people with pain, or is it mostly people that come in wanting to learn how to get stronger or move, or what is the main goal that people have generally coming in to train with you?
Sometimes people find me because they can tell I do something different, but they don't know what it is.
Hmm.
So there's a little bit of that. Often, after I've helped somebody, most people at some point experience a little niggle. Sometimes the little niggle is bigger than a little niggle. Sometimes it's just a little niggle, but most people experience something at some point.
Mhm.
So I'm very good with niggles and big niggles and major niggles. So what happens with that is I will help somebody and then they're like, oh, you need to work with my daughter or you need to work with my husband. So those cases are generally all word of mouth is how that happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're helping people with movement. Do you do manual therapy of any sort as well, or are you
No,
purely a movement professional? Okay.
very a movement professional. I do not touch people.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I know the rules in the States are very strict about if you do not have a license to touch, then you should not touch. But rules are meant to be broken too. You must put hands on to guide people into moving. No, purely just communicating.
I
That's amazing.
work at this point. So I had a studio for a long time, but at this point, I'm purely online.
Okay. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you find you had to change much about how you worked going online?
I again am so I've never been one that touches. And because I've worked so hard to get clear in my instructions,
Mm.
it actually wasn't that hard. And one of the things that, again, I've been told that I'm good at is observation.
Mm.
So the ability to observe on video, I'd sort of honed by watching people in the studio. One thing I will say in the studio, I walk around a lot. I like to get different views of how someone is moving, like that whole 360, what's happening at the side, what's happening in front, what's happening in the back. And online, what I generally do, because it's awkward to say to somebody, okay, now turn around, let me see you do it from that angle, is I purposely will set them up. Be like, okay, now I want you to look at your pool and I want you to do this way.
Mm.
And I set them up so I can see different things.
Hmm. Yeah, it is helpful to have different vantage points when you're online. I was working with a dude the other day, and I think he's in IT or something techie, but he had multiple cameras set up, and it was the coolest thing. Yeah, it was so much
That's
easier.
cool.
Yeah, everyone should
That's
do that.
awesome.
Um,
Yes.
but I also was reading about you and doing some sleuthing into your background a bit. And do you still lecture for the US Navy? That's so cool.
So
Tell me
I
about that.
I do. I It's a random gig that I got because my husband worked next door to a woman who knew the head of the program. And they needed somebody to teach yoga. This was in like 2011 or 2012. And so Carol was the name of the person that worked next door to my husband. She knocked on my husband's door and she said, hey, doesn't your wife teach yoga? And he said, well, yeah, because I did and I can. Um, she said, okay, well, we're going to call her, and here's who's going to call her, and we're going to hire her. So I was hired on as a contractor, but they liked me.
Mhm.
So then it turned into there's a lot of financial shifts with these types of programs in the military. So what it's turned into is I lecture on mindfulness for the Navy Senior Leadership Seminar, and if occasionally I will resonate so much with someone that I'll get to do it for like a different group. Like I went to Washington D.C. a year and a half ago and got to lecture for the Office of Navy Research. So that was really cool. Yeah.
That's
Yes.
really cool. What have
Yes.
you taken away from that experience?
It's really important to try to use descriptions and stories and ideas that are relevant to the group.
Mm,
That's probably the biggest one. I could give them all of the scientific information all day long, but if I don't give them a story or some example that's really relevant to them, it's not going to matter.
yeah. So what kind of, I mean, you're not a Navy person, I don't think. So how do you kind of create a story that's relevant to them? What kind of examples would you use to get your messages across?
Well, now I've been doing it for a long time now because 2012 was quite a while ago. So fortunately, I have kind of honed, like I've worked with them enough that I do have some relevant stories for
Mm.
them. Like I had one submarine um, captain who had fallen asleep and missed something major. And it was kind of a big deal. Like, and I don't know exactly because they're not allowed to say, the specifics. I don't know exactly what it was that happened, but it was a big deal, whatever it was.
Mhm.
So that's a story I can use.
Yeah.
I had one woman, actually, I had one gentleman in one of my courses offer, raise his hand and offer to the group that he had a commander, an admiral, who would stop them before they went in to meetings and have them just be quiet for a minute,
Mm.
and then they would go into the meeting. So I've used that example, and actually other people have actually implemented that, which is really cool. Like
Yeah.
one woman called it the mindful minute, and she took it back to her group and she uses it there. And, so those are the types of examples I can use.
Yeah, cool. Well, if it's good enough for the US Navy, it's good enough for anyone.
Right?
That's cool. And you continue to do that these days?
I do. I'm currently on furlough because of, again, funding stuff has been really weird here in the States.
Yeah.
So we're hopeful, my boss is hopeful that I'll get to start again. I haven't done it for about a year, but she's
Yeah.
hopeful I'll get to start again in the fall.
Oh, cool. So you're in, did you say you're in California? Or is it Santa Cruz?
So I was in that area for a very long time. Right now I'm in the Portland, Oregon area.
Oh, you are
Yeah.
cool. I've never been to Oregon, but my brother lives up in Washington in Seattle, and I've always wanted
Oh,
to dip down into Portland and explore. It looks so beautiful. Did you grow up there, or is that a recent move for you?
no, I grew up in the Bay Area actually, which is San Francisco Bay Area. So Napa, if anybody listening knows California,
Yeah.
this is a recent move for us, but we will probably be moving back to the Bay Area. So we're just kind of popping around right now, checking
Okay,
things out.
cool. Did you go to school, university in California in the Bay Area, or where did you go?
I went to University of California at Davis.
Okay. And what did you study in university? What was your major?
Exercise science with an emphasis in physiology.
Oh, cool. So was that before you became a personal trainer, or were you already working with bodies and then decided, oh, it'd be cool to do a degree in something with the body?
No, I wanted to be a doctor. And
Oh,
so, but I got my first chemistry test back. I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to be a doctor. What am I going to do instead? So I just kept taking the courses that were required for medical school because I didn't know what else to do. And my strengths were English and psychology, but I was like, what am I going to do with English and psychology? That doesn't
Mhm.
get me a career.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, towards the it was at the point where I had to declare a major, where the university was like, you have to choose by this date, or, you don't get a major. So I was like, okay, I have to choose a major. So I scoured the course catalog and I looked at it. I'm like, well, what courses look really interesting and what could I like maybe create a career out of? And I settled upon exercise science. And the reason I settled upon exercise science is because I thought, well, I could work in corporate. I could work at corporate fitness. That was big at the time that I was in school. And then the .com burst happened and everything fell apart.
Mhm. Yeah.
But that was my intention. I'm like, okay, because I wanted to graduate and have a full-time career and benefits. And I did get that. That was what I wanted, I got, but it was just in a different setting.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. So, what was your relationship with movement like? I guess when you were growing up, were you always a mover, or when did you discover exercise, movement, training? Tell me about that story for you. When did that start?
I, I, I always moved on my own. So I joined my first gym when I was 16. I started running when I was 16. I would ask for Christmas when I was like 11 and 12. I wanted like the ballet fitness tapes to do the ballet stuff because we didn't have much money. So like I couldn't do sports or dance or anything of that sort. In fact, when I could drive and I had a job, I actually called the dance studio and I was like, do you guys have any work study? Could I take classes? But they didn't have anything for 16-year-olds starting to dance. So
Mhm.
that kind of fell apart. But what's been fun about it is as an adult, I've gotten to explore everything I could possibly want to explore.
Mm.
And I have done that. Like, I did a bunch of parkour when I was in my late 30s. I called it grandma parkour or baby parkour, depending on how you want to look at it. Um, I've taken contact improv workshops. I've gone to dance workshops. I've gone to, I do aerial rope and I do static, like pole dancing just because it's fun.
Mm.
I did a handstand class right before I got on with you, you know. So as
Cool.
an adult, I just have embraced all the movement because I didn't really get to do it as a child.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing to hear that that didn't dissuade you from trying things as an adult, but actually made you want to kind of move in that direction a little bit more. So what made you want to try fitness at 16 and try running? What was the inspiration for that?
I was just always intrigued by it. Like I remember being an 11-year-old riding my bike. I rode my bike everywhere. I rode my bike and I walked everywhere.
Yeah.
So I remember being 11 and being on my bike and I had my hand on my thigh and I remember feeling it flex and contract. And I thought that was so interesting. And then I remember being 10 and I was walking up this steep hill with my mom and my legs were burning and they were on fire. And I thought, is this normal? What is this? So I was just always really intrigued by the human body and how it worked.
Mm. That's so
I don't know
interesting.
why.
Just as a kid, the sensation of your muscles burning. What did you think it was? Like, do you remember that far back and learning about what that meant?
I didn't get a good answer. I remember
Mm.
asking my mom and she kind of shrugged it off. The way, yeah, like, 'cause what do you do with that question as a
Yeah.
mom? You're like, oh.
Yeah, well, it's like the things as an adult that you take for granted, but to a kid for the first time experiencing the burning of your muscles, like you want an answer, but what is this feeling?
Totally. And then it went away, and I was like, this is so weird. So, I don't know. It just always kind of intrigued me, fitness did.
Mm.
And then I wanted to learn how to do it. So, the 90s were like the height of all of this step aerobics and the gym. But I learned how to lift weights really early. Like, and that was unusual for a female.
Yeah.
For a long time, I was the only female in the weight room.
Yeah, same. I think first picked up a weight when it must have been grade 9, so I would have been 14. And I was at a very small French immersion high school, and our French teacher was also a bodybuilder, and she ran this weight training club, and it was all dudes. It was all just like muscly meathead dudes. And then for some reason, my best friend and I decided we should join. I think we were just kind of trying to be a bit different and try a little bit of everything. And our teacher gave us this really basic, like, weight training program with 5 pound dumbbells. Just like the standard. If you opened up a fitness magazine at that time, it would have been a woman with her light weights, like pink dumbbells, doing this, doing her bicep curls and her lateral raises. And so we didn't really feel any effects from it. But I don't know, there was something empowering about doing it and then putting yourself in that situation where you are the only woman doing something like that. But it sounds like you were genuinely interested in it.
I was genuinely curious and I found the whole thing just fascinating. I was like, oh, I feel strong. Like feeling stronger was interesting, or, because I was running at the same time too. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting faster. That's interesting. Or, oh,
Mm,
it's harder for me to run on days when it's really hot. That's interesting.
mm,
So I guess I've just always had this naturally curious approach to it. And what's been
mm,
nice about it is like being open minded and learning how to do very hard skills as an adult
mm,
has made me realize you can learn how to do anything at any age
mm.
if you're given the right stepping stones.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't just jump right into trying to flip upside down on the pole if you're 40 and it's your first time moving in your life. Um,
Exactly.
was movement and exercise ever something that you engaged in a more instrumental way? And by that I mean engaging with fitness and diet culture where the goal of exercise is to make your body look smaller or build muscle or look a certain way versus just doing it for the enjoyment and curiosity.
I definitely stayed far away from all of that, from the diet culture and the traditional fitness. And I think that was part of the issue because I've almost left the profession a couple of times.
Mm,
And I think that's one of the reasons why is because I get very disheartened by the constant messaging that fitness is a way to look a
mm,
certain way.
mhm,
And it's not. Movement is a way to express yourself and enjoy an experience in my world. This is
mm,
my viewpoint. So I don't even, and I remember I had a client once, he came in, he was referred to me because he'd had back surgery. So I was helping him post back surgery. But at one point, his back was getting a lot better and he was getting a lot stronger. And he looked at me and he said, so I would really like to talk about like six pack abs in my diet. And I said, I don't do that. And he
mm.
laughed. And he used to tease me about that because he's told me, he's like, that was the most clear, honest answer I've ever gotten about.
That's awesome. No, it's amazing to state that so clearly because I, as a personal trainer, at that first phase in my journey with helping people with movement, I also felt a lot of pressure to help people who wanted to lose weight, and I always tried to stay clear of it. But when it was the beginning of my career and I was just trying to get clients, there were a lot of people that was their stated goal, and I tried to say like that's not what I do. I help people move better and I help them get stronger and I help them with their performance, but I really like don't want to talk with you about your diet. But inevitably some clients pushed the matter so much that I felt compelled to give them advice, and I always felt so icky about it. And I think it's because it's something that I've struggled with a lot in my life as well. I'm currently trying to untangle all of my intentions underlying why I exercise. And it was so insidiously hid under the surface that I could claim on the outside that I'm doing this because I want to learn a skill or I want to get stronger. But then deep down, really, what was in me was I just need to make my body look a certain way so that I look the part of what society thinks a woman should look like. And I've really struggled with that a lot. So, how did you stay so protected, do you think, from that messaging in your career?
I mean, I will say that definitely the pressure to look a certain way is very real. And it is hard to like constantly push that away, especially because I do put myself out there. I do put myself on video, right? So I do put myself on Instagram and on YouTube, and you see what you look like and you're aware. You're like, okay, well, I don't look maybe the traditional part,
Mm,
but I still have something to offer.
mm,
And that is like something I constantly have to remind myself. I'm like, oh no, I have something to offer, even if I don't look, this a certain way.
And I think it's more relatable as well, and it sets a role model that is realistic. for, movement and training, whatever that is for every body, whatever size you are, whatever who you are. Movement is for
Yes.
everybody. And like you said, at any age as well, you can start to move again. So I think we really do need more people putting themselves out there that are courageous enough to overcome the stigmatizing messages about what you should look like if you're going to be a fitness professional. So good on you, Jen. Definitely
Thank you.
inspiring me. And so, when did you first start doing things like the handstands and the pole? When did those all come into the mix? I know you also do some gymnastics. So, when did you
I
start getting into that in this journey?
So when I remember being, how old was I? 12, I guess, because the Olympics are every 4 years. I remember being 12 and I remember watching the Summer Olympics. And again, I didn't have access to a lot of stuff, but I remember watching the Summer Olympics and just mimicking the girls in the floor routines because it looked so fun.
Mm,
And I taught myself how to do like a back walkover, which is funny because that's like my least favorite thing. I could not do that today. Back bends are
yeah.
not my thing. But I was always really attracted to that type. Putting me upside down is like the best thing for me. It really calms me down. It's a good for my brain.
Yeah.
And so I was attracted to it at a very early age. And so then it just sort of perpetuated. When I started doing yoga in my early 20s, I was attracted to Ashtanga yoga because early on, it's a very fiery practice, which suits my personality. But then early on, you get to practice things like floating up towards a handstand. There's arm balances. This was stuff that I liked, you know.
Mm,
Yoga itself, and this is not to diss yoga, but it wasn't necessarily the right fit for me. So I left that and then got to explore all these other things, which were
mm,
suddenly becoming more populated online.
mm. Yeah, and I'm just still thinking about what would have insulated you from the damaging aspects of fitness culture. And it sounds like you were really drawn to practices that involved some kind of skill and strength at the same
Yes.
time. And do you feel
Yes.
like that maybe took the the focus away from how you looked more to being in the experience of it? Or is it
I
something
think
else?
that's what a no, I think that I completely think that's what allowed me to shut off the fact that again, I because again, even in the Ashtanga yoga world, I did not look like an Ashtanga yogi. So it's what allowed me to like put that blinder on and be like, okay, but I'm good at this part,
Hmm.
which was always the strength and the more like skill-based work.
Mm,
So I could let go of the rest of it, put on blinders and be like, okay, I'm just going to focus on this, you
yeah.
know?
And it feels so good to master a skill. So I
Oh,
think
so good.
that is a very useful remedy for anyone who might be stuck in the just going to the gym, getting on the treadmill, staring at themselves in the mirror, trying to lift weights to sculpt their body, and like learn a skill that also requires strength, and it'll be such a more nourishing experience, I think, for mind and body. But
Yes.
maybe can you tell me a little bit? Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but we'll circle back to. I want to ask you some more questions about your experience in your own body. But what have you learned about the intersection between the mind and the body in the work that you do? And you mentioned that something that you wrote about over COVID was the mental health component of movement practice and exercise. So, what are the main takeaways that you got from investigating that work?
It's It's interesting. As I said earlier, I work with a lot of high energy people that tend to be anxious. And the thing with anxiety is you're living up here, right? You're very thinking about what could happen. You're running kind of in this like fight or flight state. So, how can you take someone who's experiencing that and like put them in the here and now? And the easiest way to put somebody in the here and now is to help them feel what they're connected to and focus on those focal points and then give them something that's a little bit challenging to do, but that's not too challenging.
Mm.
So, like we were just talking about skills, right? But something I've taught a lot of my clients is like there's this roll. You guys do it in contemporary. I don't know if you did contemporary dance, but I know they do it in
Yeah.
contemporary dance too. But you come onto your hands and your knees and you just roll under your shoulder and your hip onto your back, and then you roll all the way up, right? That's a parkour move. It shows up in dance, it shows up in a lot of different places. I teach that a lot to my clients and it makes them smile. And it also makes them very present. They're like, oh, here I am. And then if you, throughout whatever practice you're giving them, whatever experience you're giving them, I'm very consistent with feeling if someone's really spun up, like feeling the anchor points, like feel your feet, feel where your hands are, feel, on everything, like whatever they're touching, if it's a barbell or the floor or whatever they're doing, like feel those things.
Mm.
And the research supports this as proprioception. As soon as you give people more input, it changes their experience.
Mm. Mm.
So that was probably the biggest thing that and that's the probably the aspect of that work that I've really been able to take.
Mm. Just finding ways to come back into your body and not be so disconnected and up in your head. Yeah, that was a big challenge for me actually. And I like to ask people about this because I I used to be very, very disconnected from my body, coming from a place of a lot of injuries, mental health challenges. It just didn't feel good, or I'd learned not to pay attention to my body because it wasn't very pleasant. And I don't know if you've had this experience of needing to feel what it's like to be in your body again. Have you gone through that in your own experience of feeling really disconnected and needing to find ways of just getting back in? Like, for example, if I did a yoga class in my early 20s, I wouldn't have been able to feel any of the stretches. It just all hurt. It just felt like this is bad, or like it's neural tension. I don't feel the things in my body that they're saying I should feel. And I can't even connect into, you say you want me to move my pelvis in this direction. I don't even know how to tell if I'm doing that, or, like, how have you gone through
Yes,
that as well?
I have gone through that. And what really changed things for me was I studied a lot of Feldenkrais for about a year and a half. Um, and again, I wanted to know why were the Feldenkrais lessons very effective for me? And as I studied, you know, his work and what he did so well was he broke down movements again in these little tiny ways and gave you freedom to explore a little bit within this very safe container. And he didn't tell you what was right and what was wrong.
Hmm.
So I utilize that a lot in my own practice, but I also utilize that with my clients. And I have clients that especially people that don't know me, new clients, they'll say, "Am I doing this right?" Like, I don't
Hmm.
know. How does it feel?
Yeah. I am guilty of that line as well. People really just want to be told if they're doing it right without feeling into their system to know for themselves.
Yes. And you have to draw the attention back in a little bit sometimes to know. And if they're like, "Well, I don't know." I'm like, "Well, are you accomplishing the task, whatever the task was?" Because there's
Mhm.
always a task, like in a movement, like whatever the exercise you're giving somebody, there's always a task that they're trying to do. Like, "Well, you're doing the thing that we wanted to do." And they're like, "Well, yeah." I'm like, "Cool, then we're good."
You're doing it right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool. So as far as your own personal journey, I mean, a lot of us get into these professions, movement, training, therapeutic modalities, because we've had our own challenges with our bodies, injuries, setbacks. So, do you have anything to tell about that? What have been your challenges and setbacks, injuries? What happened? And yeah, what did you do?
Well, I had chronic pain from like 20, how old was I? 23 to 29, I think.
Wow, what kind of pain were
Um,
you experiencing?
it was it felt like my body was like kind of like on fire. Like it felt like I was like humming with electricity, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So I would have a lot of neural tension in like my hips and my low back.
Hmm.
I had a lot of neural tension in my neck and my shoulders down into my elbows. And I was still very active. I was doing triathlons, I was lifting weights, I was doing the Ashtanga yoga. and nothing was seeming to work. And so then, like all of us, we go on this like journey and we're like, well, this and like I said, at that point in time, I was really frustrated with the fitness industry in general. I'm like, I'm not getting good answers.
Mm.
And this was before the information was as prolific as it is today.
Yeah.
You know, today you've got social media and you've got websites, and there were websites, but it was more underground.
Mm.
Um,
I miss those days a little bit.
right, right.
Yeah, she had to go searching for something you cared about. Anyway.
Exactly. So So anyway, I started, that's why I know every acronym. If you throw the acronym at me, I've heard it, I've studied it. If I haven't studied it, like I said earlier, I have at least read about it.
Mm.
Because I'm like, what is the answer? And I wanted an answer so badly.
Yeah.
I wanted there to be one thing. There is not one thing.
No.
No, there's just not. And once I accepted that, then things really improved for me. I was like, oh, okay, there's not one answer, but if I can move in ways that are enjoyable and in ways that I like, and also slow down occasionally and feel, my body's going to feel really good. And so that's kind of how that worked.
Yeah. That must be why your work didn't trigger me when I was going through my cull of 2022 of all my fitness people on social media. I think that's so true, and it's so important to hear that there is a place in everyone's practice for anything and everything. It's all good. There is no right or wrong. There is no morality to moving your body. We just have to explore what works for us, and there will be things at different phases in life that work better than others for our particular issues. So, what was your so you had that neural tension in a lot of parts of your body. So what was the first thing that you felt really helped you understand that on your quest?
I will say the breathing techniques in PRI were really effective for me. They the mid back stuff, just getting the mid back to flex,
Mm.
which I was doing a lot of things that were anti mid back flexion. They were very mid back extension, which just
Back
sort of feeds into a lot of
walkovers
other
and
stuff. Yeah, exactly. And Ashtanga yoga is very, keep everything. Anyway,
yeah, yeah, very extension based. Yeah.
very extension based. So, yeah, so that was like that piece, like getting like my mid back to
Mm.
relax and feeling movement through there, and feeling movement through there was
Mm.
huge.
I so
Um,
resonate with that. I wonder if for a lot of people that are struggling with that kind of discomfort or just disconnect from their body, that really just getting uh, exploring breath. Do you reckon that's a good place to start for a lot of people if they
I
just
think it
don't
depends.
know?
I think it depends on their relationship with breath, because
Mm.
breath can be very triggering for people. So I
Mm.
think if you're someone who does not feel like you're going to hyperventilate when you start focusing on your breathing, I think breathing is an excellent place to start.
Mm. Okay.
But if you're someone who, and I have a client and she has anxiety and she knows that breathing would be good,
Mm.
it is not a good place for her. Like I know that about her. So I've never like suggested breath work for her.
Mm.
Um, but I think that if you're someone, like I said, for someone who's not triggered by breath, I think breathing is great.
Mm. I had a recent experience. This is kind of unrelated to movement whatsoever, but this is the first time I've considered that for some people, breathing can trigger them. But I had a really bad sinus infection, and at nighttime I was lying in bed, and usually I'm a pretty natural nose breather. I've never had to worry about the mouth taping to make sure I breathe through my nose because I naturally do it and it feels fine. But I couldn't breathe through my nose at night, so I thought, well, I'm going to have to intentionally breathe through my mouth now. And I realized that I had to intentionally think about breathing through my mouth. I couldn't unconsciously do it. I had to think about it. And then I thought, if I go to sleep, I'm not going to be able to breathe anymore now because I'm going to stop thinking about how to breathe. And then I had a massive panic attack. And then I started crying. And then I couldn't sleep. And I was. So yeah, focusing too much on your breathing can trigger anxiety. So that's very important to know. It just goes back to the idea that there's no black and white advice that's good for everyone at all times. So for you, I resonate with that as well, actually, with the PRI. And for people who don't know, PRI is Postural Restoration Institute. They do a lot of work with people. They see a pattern that a lot of people are very hyperextended in their spine and they struggle to do a good diaphragmatic breath. And they focus a lot on helping people to flex and do a proper diaphragmatic breath, which is really, really valuable. And that actually helped me quite a bit too with my back problems. And I also had a lot of hyperextension injuries from dancing. And I actually, in my first PRI class, I think 2013, I was the demo for the person to do the 1990 hip lift where your feet are on the wall,
Oh, yes.
hook lying, 90-degree angle, and the balloon you blow up.
Yes.
Um, and I couldn't do it. And I was so embarrassed in front of the class that I couldn't flex my spine and I couldn't blow up the balloon. And I almost cried. I was so mortified. But then I remember coming home from the course and realizing I had so many insights about just my life and my body. And it really changed my trajectory of things and got me so curious. And I don't do much PRI with people anymore, really. Do you use it in your practice?
Very rarely. Every once in a while, someone will come in and I can tell that based on what they're saying and based on what I'm seeing, I'm like, oh, let's do some diaphragmatic breathing. And that is the piece that I took away from PRI was okay, I can put somebody in a flexed final position and I can have them do focused breathing and I can really change some things pretty quickly. It
Mm.
doesn't stick unless you build upon it, but you can change some things very quickly in the moment for the person.
Yeah, same. That's what I took away from that course is just the breathing component of it was huge. Especially I was working with a lot of dancers at the time, so a lot of them were stuck in that extended what they call the PEC pattern and really benefited from it. But not everyone. I I I did this thing where I just imposed or projected all of my problems onto everyone and thought that everyone had the same problems as me. Which took a while to learn not to do and to actually see things clearly for what they were. But for a while, everyone was getting 1990 hip lifts with a balloon because I needed it, not them.
Yes, I did the same thing. So I can relate to this. I did my PRI stuff a long time ago, but yeah, I remember a
Yeah.
phase where everybody got a balloon when they walked in.
Yep. Yep. Dear. So that helped you quite a bit. And then from there, what else did you explore that you found really helpful for your own issues you were going through at the time?
I would say it was twofold. It was, like I said, Feldenkrais. And then also I got really into MoveNat,
Hmm.
which was MoveNat is, it's just a modality where you're on the floor a lot. There's a lot of groundwork involved in MoveNat, which is really nice. There's a lot of hanging, a lot of different hanging configurations that you do, a lot of different hanging exercises. And it was fun. It was super fun. And I got really strong, but it also, like, again, it kind of reinforced to me that my body's not fragile
Hmm.
and I can learn how to do hard things and I can do it in a way that doesn't make me feel bad.
Hmm.
Because part of it was just smart programming. It's lower reps. You do several sets, but it's lower reps and it's more about the experience of stuff, not about how much you're lifting until you get to the higher level stuff, which I never wasn't my thing. So
Hmm. Yeah, cool. So MoveNat felt like it was helpful for, was it for improving some pain symptoms you were having, or what do you think you got most out of that?
it did help. Oh, and actually, I should say GMB. GMB, actually, I did that before MoveNat, and that was really helpful.
And
Um,
GMB is the gymnastics. What does
it's
that
like,
stand for?
yeah. I, so I think they changed the name to Praxis, which means I'm going to ruin what it means. I can't remember what praxis means. But GMB originally stood for gold medal bodies,
Gold medal
which was
body.
from a gym, was like a gymnastics thing. And then they did not like that. So they changed it to GMB. And now they're changing the name because they don't want to explain anymore what
Yeah,
GMB.
yeah.
But GMB is a lot of floor movements. Again, a lot of, like, the floor movement was really, really good for me. Just, the different ways to crawl, different ways to come into a squat, different ways to load your hands. And of course, since I've mentioned earlier, I love to be upside down, this all resonated with me because I could, start to practice handstandy type stuff. And I got to do cartwheels. And I think what was helpful about it was the proprioception that you gain from doing those types of skills. It's huge.
Mm.
you know? And so you start to trust your body in a more full way.
Mm. That's huge.
And like with the move mat, you do a lot of like walking across a 2x4 and you jump. They call them precision jumps. So you set up like weight plates and you jump from one weight plate to another. So you're just getting more comfortable moving in different ways.
Mm.
And I think that's what was, I think that was really helpful for me.
Mm. Do you think there's an element there of distracting yourself from being so focused on pain
Oh,
that that helps with?
for sure. You're no longer focused on the internal sense of yourself, which you need to be able to focus on the internal sense of yourself, but you need to be able to let that go and focus on something else too.
Yeah. I think that's huge, and it's not really discussed so much, and it can even have a negative connotation of distract yourself because it kind of sounds like you're not addressing what the problem is. But we can get so tuned into sensations that it's hard, even if things are okay now in our bodies, there's no real problems. We just keep looking for the sensation that was there. I had a client who he went to a Vipassana retreat and he
Mhm.
told me that the whole time he was there, he was so hyper fixated on every single sensation in his body that it was just so mentally distracting. He didn't feel relaxed. He was just focusing on all the things his body was feeling. I'm like, that sounds horrible. That would be me on Vipassana. I'm not going. It sounds bad. Did you ever have a experience with conventional physio or rehabilitation?
No, isn't that terrible? I just always assumed I could fix myself.
Yeah, I mean, me too. That's not terrible. And it sounds like you discovered some good things. Do you just have an aversion to being told what to do?
I think there's probably, I was going to say there might be some truth to that, but actually, I'm really good at being coached. So
Hmm.
I think my issue with physio was always taking time out of my day for somebody to tell me how to do small little exercises.
Right.
When I could do the small little exercises on my own and
Hmm.
just see if they worked. Now, physios do way more than that. Anybody listening, I'm not discrediting. Go to your physio, get all the work,
We
get all the help you
love
need.
physios.
Oh,
Physios are
we do.
great.
Yes, yes. I just always, and I could always tell, I'm like, this isn't like a standard, like, I don't know. You know how you know when something's really wrong in your body? Like, I don't know if you've ever rolled an ankle or like, and you're like, okay, this is a problem. This is like not good.
Mhm.
But it wasn't that. You know what I mean? It was this general systemic stuff. So,
Mm. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. It sounds like you had the trust that you could with your curiosity that you had from that first experience of feeling your leg muscles burning. You just had this curiosity and belief in your own ability to understand things for yourself. And I mean, I guess if you'd bumped into stuff you couldn't understand, you've gone and you've taken courses to learn about it. And some people are more wired in that way. I think I was more like that as well. I don't know if I've ever, in my adult life anyway, actually gone and paid for physio. I've had treatments, I've had colleagues help me out, but I don't often go to a conventional rehabilitation type path. Yeah, it's just not really my, I don't know, I guess my personality type must be. Yeah. Um, but I really want to make time to talk about your book that just came out yesterday, Spinal Intelligence. So, could you tell me about what made this an important book for you to write and what are people going to get out of it?
it was important for me to write because I've always had a fascination with the spine and I've always had a fascination with the nervous system. So this allowed me to talk about both, which was awesome. What I hope people get from it, what I really hope people get from it, this is the first, well, yes, this is the first book I've written for not a movement professional. It's written for anybody who's curious about how their body works and about curious about how they could feel more connected and unsure of if the information they're hearing on social media is accurate or not.
Hmm.
So
Important.
I dispel some myths. Yes. So I dispel some myths. I talk about like the myth of the text neck. I talk about the myth of core training, I guess is a more accurate way to put it. And then I try to empower people to kind of experience more of themselves. You know, I talk about the importance of strength, the importance of flexibility and mobility, because those are important components to feeling good. But there's more to it than that. I have a whole chapter that talks about the science of awe
Mm.
and what that does for us, you know, and mindfulness. I got to incorporate a chapter on that, which was awesome. So,
Mm. Yeah, cool.
yeah.
The spine is pretty fascinating, and especially when you consider that your nervous system, much of your nervous system is housed within it. It's like the core of your being in some ways that you can experience through movement. And that was the big mind-blowing thing that I took away from PRI, really, was this cool connection between the nervous system and the movement of the body. And I thought that was really incredible. And I love that you're dispelling some myths and some blanket black and white statements that are on social media. So you mentioned the text neck one. Could you tell us a little bit about why that is not something we need to worry about? Or what are you saying about text neck or tech neck? Is it text
I
or tech neck?
text, or it could be tech neck, actually. It could be tech neck as well. Um, text neck is I think what happens a lot is people fixate on the way someone looks in a moment in time.
Mm,
So when someone is looking at their phone and their head is hanging down, there has been this idea that, oh gosh, this is not good. And so what I do within the chapter is I talk about, well, posture is just this brief moment in time. It's that moment before you transition to the next thing. And if you spend a lot of and we're talking like long, long, long periods of time in one position, then there's going to be a lot of pressure in one spot. And when there's a lot of pressure in one spot, then your body generally tells you if you're tuned in.
mm,
It's like, oh, hey, time to shift positions, you know?
yeah.
So that's what I tried to do within that chapter was
Mm.
explain like what people are, why these messages even exist, but then why they're maybe not entirely accurate and why you don't really have a text neck is not really a thing.
Yeah, you're not you don't have a syndrome because you look at your phone.
Exactly.
And I mean, humans have been looking down at stuff for centuries. This isn't a
Yes.
new thing.
No.
And to be honest, I'm actually, when you see some teenage kids and they're just like completely folded in half, and I'm jealous. I'm like, I wish I could do that. My spine won't bend that way. I need to do more of that.
Totally.
So text neck is one of the misconceptions you're trying to dispel. What else do you see on social media that just kind of gets you fired up?
I won't lie, kind of like you, I have stopped looking at Instagram unless it's an animal video or a music video, and then it'll capture my attention, but like everything else I just don't look at
Mm.
because I get so irritated.
Yeah. Oh, this is good mental health advice. Animal videos and music. So good.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just to like push some triggers though, what do you think about when you see stuff about toe spacers? What's your hot take on if someone asked you, "Hey Jen, should I wear toe spacers?" Just for example, because I see that a lot.
I would say if it were a client or somebody that I knew well, I would say no.
Why? Why would you say that?
Because it's not how it's not how the foot works.
Yeah, good short
um,
answer. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. And if it were anybody else, I would just nod and listen as they told me about why they were wearing toe spacers. That's what
Yeah.
I would do if it were anybody
Yeah, yeah.
else.
I think generally when people ask about things like that, like, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? It's important to bring it back to like, well, how do you feel in your body when you do that?
Yes.
Like, does it feel good? All right, knock yourself out. Does it feel worse? Then maybe you should listen to that message from your body that feels worse and not just do the thing that you saw someone do. Oh my God, the stories about people just doing shit from the internet that goes wrong. Messages they hear. I had this one I'll never forget. This was prior to doing, or it was during an anatomy and motion course where um, this man in the course, he had heard that if people struggle with like ankle dorsiflexion, that maybe it's because their talus bone is too anterior and it needs to go
Oh,
in posteriorly when they bend their knee for their ankle to dorsiflex well. And so his idea was, oh, well, my talus must be too anterior. So he, with his other foot, he kicked with his heel into the front of his ankle to try to relocate his talus more posteriorly. And he ended up giving himself a really bad injury. So I think that's a really good example of what not to do when you hear advice. Just like make sure you ask, is this pertinent to me? If you're not sure, ask someone to help guide you. And don't just go kicking your talus back into place. Or wearing one of those posture correctors. People ask me all the time about,
yes.
oh, should I wear one of those posture correctors that pull your shoulders back? And my short answer is no. But people also need to learn for themselves. Like, I'm the kind of person that you tell me don't lick a flagpole in winter, I'm going to do it just to find out why. So I think there is, freedom to explore what's right for you.
Yes.
Yeah. So from there, I don't know how to tangent smoothly from lick a flagpole in the winter to more about your book. So what did you take away from writing the book? Did you learn anything new?
I always learn from writing books. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Like it was interesting because you obviously I knew this stuff because it was in my brain and I was able to put it into words and put it onto paper. But during the writing process, I had a couple of clients come in with various things that were spine that happened to be spine related. And the clarity with which I saw what they needed was just wild. I was like, oh wow. And like I do this a lot. I make up exercises to get what I want, because I like to say as little as like I like to not have to over explain. So I like to come up with ways to do things that don't require many words from me. They might require a lot of props, but they don't require a lot of words from me. Um, yeah. So that was really cool. That was really cool. And I've experienced this with every book. If you ever want to understand something deeply, write a book about it.
Hmm. And why the spine for you? Why was that the topic of interest?
I think because there's so many misconceptions around it.
Hmm.
And again, if you are a human being, there's a decent chance 80% of adults will experience back pain at some point in their life.
Hmm.
Most of the time, it's not a big deal, it goes away.
Hmm. Yeah.
But a lot of people have a lot of stories about it. So, I thought that it was important to talk about and address.
Yeah, yeah. So, if you may, give us what's one of these misconceptions about the spine people have that you address in the book? Just a little teaser, because people should read the
Oh,
book.
gosh.
But what's one maybe get them whet their appetite for it?
Oh, there's so many misconceptions about the spine. Um, what's one? Oh, gosh. Well, I said the posture is the big one. Like, what's my
Mm,
posture supposed to be as I do this specific thing? I think
mm,
that's probably the biggest misconception people have is that their spine is meant to be held one way.
mm.
And And when I say held, I mean people think that with like exercises, they need to do anti-rotation exercises. They need to do all the, people have a lot of
Stability,
ideas.
stabilize your spine,
Stability.
neutral
Oh,
spine.
that's, yeah.
What do you think about neutral
Which,
spine? Is that a thing that people should work on?
no. I mean, you should know where your sense of center is. I think that's important to feel where your center is. But no, we want our spine to be able to move to
Yeah.
feel a lot better.
Yeah, no, that's really refreshing to hear you say that. The number of it still somehow seeps through the social media posts about fix your posture. Um, I am so guilty of this when I was in the early stages of my career as a personal trainer, and the first advice that you get really is you need to stretch your pecs and
Yep.
strengthen your rhomboids so that and your middle and lower traps to help with your upper cross syndrome.
Upper cross syndrome and lower cross syndrome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which are
Yeah.
just ways of describing a posture. And
Yes.
yeah, like you said, that posture isn't something that you need to try to lock yourself into a perfect model of. But so, what have you learned about what's the best way to work with posture? What should be our
The
goal?
best.
That maybe that's a better question. What should be our goal if people want to improve their posture? Is there a better goal even to work on
I
than that?
think there is. I think there is a better goal, and the better goal is to be able to feel centered.
Mm,
Because if you feel centered in whatever you're doing, like, because posture is just a transition, is just that point between the transition. So if I transition over to one leg and I pick up the other leg and I feel centered over the leg that I am now on, this is a good thing,
mm.
you know?
I
So
think
I think that should be the goal.
feeling
And to your
centered.
point, feeling centered. And to your point about Yonda, who's the one who came up with upper and lower cross syndrome. So again, I'm a nerd. I like look into stuff. And he came up with these ideas while sitting on a park bench and he watched people walk by
Mm,
and he observed their posture. And this is what he concluded. But there was nothing that said that any of these things were bad.
right.
He just made these assumptions
Mm,
and created a physio program off of it.
yeah. And so many people have created programs around these so-called syndromes, which are actually just how the human body is a lot of the time.
Yes.
Yeah, so feeling centered, and that could look very different for everyone.
Very.
My
Oh, yeah.
feeling centered will look not at all like your feeling centered. And the only person that can really know is the person in the body. And so it's really
Yes.
silly to try to impose anything upon anyone that is our version of what their posture should look like. So it sounds like a lot of your philosophy is really around helping people to explore for themselves what's true in their own systems. Would that be correct to say?
Yep, that would absolutely be correct.
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, so I think we'll need to wrap up pretty shortly, but I just wanted to ask you because I'm currently thinking about this and writing a little bit about it in a blog post that no one will ever read because no one reads blog posts. But it's fun just to write about it to, know what you're thinking about. But I was curious, we talked about misconceptions about the spine, but is there another common misconception that, or mistake, or myth, or misunderstanding about movement, rehabilitation, people's journeys with their bodies? What do you think is the biggest misconception that you run into with your work with people, and what do you do?
Ooh, ooh, oh gosh. I
I
mean,
know
I've heard so many.
there's probably a lot, but anything that first pops into your head.
Um, the one of the things that's floating around a lot is the importance of strength for females,
Mm,
which is very true. But this idea that you need to be able to deadlift 1.5 times your body weight,
mm, not true.
and you don't, not true.
Oh, phew, I
There's
can do
no,
that.
there's
Actually,
no, there's,
when I was working towards doing that, I really hurt myself and was in a pretty bad state in my life. And then I stopped and I felt better.
well, it's, so I have clients, again, I work with clients virtually. So, they only have, dumbbells to go up to, let's say, like, I have a client, big guy, but his dumbbells only go up to 40 pounds. So he deadlifts 80 pounds with his dumbbells.
Mm,
And you know what? He feels great. He's almost 70. He's
mm,
running a half marathon in 2 weeks. He's, yeah. And he tells me regularly, he's like, Jen, I'm in the best shape possibly of my life. And he's going to be 70 in July.
yeah,
So,
wow.
and he's never deadlifted 1.5 times his body weights.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. It is. Yeah, when you see numbers floating around about you should be able to lift this much. Did you ever read the? This might be triggering for some people. The name Peter Attia. Have you ever
mm,
looked at his book? What was it?
outlive, I think.
Outlive. Yeah, and in it, he had a lot of standards for fitness that he thought everyone should be able to do. And a lot of them just seemed really outrageous to me. as measures of health, quote unquote, that you should be able to do these things, otherwise you're not healthy. Like his minimum dead hang was something ridiculous. I don't remember what it was. It was like minutes though for a
It
female.
was minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, is that really the most important thing that you should focus on? What if you hate it? What if it makes you miserable?
Well, then you should not. And this is the thing. We should not do things that make us miserable.
No.
I worked with a client. One of my clients today is 89. And she doesn't want to be miserable during her workouts. She just wants to feel good. And she feels great. She was just telling me today, she's like, I can walk up and down the stairs with no pain. Like, I feel really good. This is what matters.
Yeah. I think it's so important what you're saying that people, I don't want to say people should do anything, but I think it's important to consider the goals you have for the movements that you're doing and if they really are true values for you. And I have this framework that I like to think through called MESH, MESH, that a movement practice should be meaningful, enjoyable, sustainable, and healthy. And of course, healthy means a lot of different things. So we really have to know what is our version of healthy that we're going for. Because someone's version, like in Peter Attia's book, perhaps striving for that definition of healthy might lead you to some really disordered places. I even remember actually listening to him on a podcast saying that he had probably an eating disorder and probably an addiction to exercise. And like, is that really the version of health? And maybe he's overcome that, but it really is that what you want to be working towards and taking that advice because know where he's coming from with that. And it can be a lot to unpack. Like, what really do I want to do in my body? What really is a healthy goal for me to set? And sometimes you can get so far down other people's ideas about it that you don't even know what you want anymore. And then you end up working for your 1.5 times body weight deadlift and hurting your back and thinking you're not good enough because you keep failing at the goal that wasn't even your goal in the first place.
That was very well put. Yes, I agree with all of that.
So I think that's why I resonate with you so much, Jen. I feel like there's a lot of similar philosophies you have about movement and working with bodies, and it was so lovely to get to talk with you. And so, if people want to get your book, your new book, Spinal Intelligence, or any of your other three books, where should they look?
My website, JENNPILOTTI.com, is a great place to find all of my work and to purchase things there. Everything is on Amazon. Spinal Intelligence will be on Amazon in the next week. I made a little boo boo when I tried to upload it yesterday.
Oh,
But the boo boo is getting fixed. So, yeah.
cool. And there's exercises that come with it too. You said you were filming a lot for this book.
I did. I filmed. So at the end of the book, chapter 8, there's 15 different movement practices. They're all suggestions, but there's QR codes next to all of them that are linked to the YouTube videos of the exercises because it is hard to learn exercise through a
Yeah.
book. I recognize that. And if people
Yeah.
want to try some of these concepts out, I also have a online course that will be out in a month called Regulated and Strong, and that's all based on the concepts in the book.
Oh, amazing. Well, I hope that you get a lot of good interest in your book, and I know it'll help a lot of people with what they're looking for. So, thanks so much for chatting with me, Jen. This was really lovely.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This was great.
Yeah, my pleasure.